sponsorships. In many ways, they're considered the holy grail for fighting game players. When you see those 2 to 4 letters in front of somebody's gamertag in the bracket, you know they're serious enough about this for a larger organization to have seen long-term value in partnering with them. Sponsorships can mean support for attending more events, greater recognition for your personal brand, additional resources for content creation, and more. But all this begs the question, how do you get sponsored in the FGC? With sponsored players always in the spotlight, and sponsorships coveted by seemingly everyone, why is the process so opaque to a first-timer? I'm here to demystify a little bit of the sponsorship process based on my personal experience thus far. So buckle up, gamers, let's talk about sponsorships. Part 1. Who are my sponsors? This week, I had the pleasure of announcing what I consider my greatest FGC achievement since I fell in love with Street Fighter VI. I'm now sponsored by Paragon, a mid-sized, well-respected FGC esports org, as both a competitive player and a content creator. This isn't my first time being sponsored. Before this, I partnered with a small leverless company, SGF Devices, for the duration of EVO 2024 in Las Vegas. Currently, I'm partnered with a larger leverless company, the Original Hitbox, for the duration of the upcoming Frosty Faustings 2025 in Chicago. Paragon, in particular, is a huge deal for one core reason. I'm a Paragon player for the foreseeable future. The partnership isn't limited by the length of just one event. And thanks to the FGC's nasty alt-right fringe sobbing about women taking up space in video games, I got way more eyes on this announcement than I'd anticipated. It's what prompted me to make this guide, actually. Those who weren't pathetically bemoaning gender diversity in gaming wanted to know how I got sponsored by an org. Part 2. How did I get my sponsors? I'll get into what my sponsors provided me, and what you should reasonably expect from a sponsor later in the video. But let's start here. How did I get my sponsors? A lot of gamers seem to be under the impression that to achieve competitive sponsorship, you need to be so mind-bendingly good at the game, so terrifyingly consistent in your tournament placings, so inescapably memorable as a face in the scene that an org contacts you with an offer. None of my sponsorships involved an unfamiliar organization contacting me first. So let's start at the beginning. My first sponsorship with SGF in summer 2024 was the result of an organic pre-existing relationship. SGF is a small company, and I'd purchased my very first leverless controller from them. I loved that controller so much that I talked about it a lot online, both on social media and on this fledgling YouTube channel. I was also quite active in SGF's Discord, advising newer members on the transition to leverless and why I preferred it to pad, especially as a dyspraxic gamer. SGF used my Discord DMs, where we'd already been having conversations about FGC stuff, to raise the possibility of sponsoring me to an event in the future. When I was confirmed as one of 8 competitors on Justin Wong's Next Up reality show, SGF saw the branding opportunity and pulled the trigger, making an offer to work with me for EVO 2024, which was a few months away at the time. This sponsorship is the only one where technically I was contacted first, but it wasn't by an unfamiliar org that had been watching from the rafters. It was from someone I already considered an internet friend, Matt from SGF. I'll talk about what SGF provided me later, but for now, it suffices to say that working with them for EVO was a wonderful experience. SGF didn't have the funds to continue a long-term partnership with me beyond the single event, even though we both considered the partnership to have been a success, so we politely parted ways professionally. Personally, we're still in touch, and I wish Matt all the best. Fast forward to fall 2024. With Frosty Faustings rapidly approaching in January 2025, I was itching to attend another offline major. But my employment situation has been consistently unstable, riddled with layoffs and a general run of bad luck. I'm also still making very little money from my online content. So I couldn't afford to attend another large event, even with Frosty being dramatically less expensive than EVO. I decided that if I wanted to make something happen, I had to be willing to put it out into the universe and give the impossible my best shot. So I started a crowdfund with a target of $1,300 to attend Frosty. Some of my friends and their friends donated, but I clearly wasn't going to hit that goal without more help. And I didn't have a sponsor anymore. Or I didn't have a sponsor yet. Via a template on Canva, a free, simple graphic design software that I also use for my YouTube thumbnails, I put together a formal resume of my FGC accomplishments thus far. This included a short bio, summary of my previous sponsorship experience, and relevant appearances and accolades. Next, I researched notable controller companies that were likely to have disposable income. Many were companies I basically knew were way too big to care about me, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, so I contacted everyone anyway. Via email or a company website's contact form, I introduced myself in short, embedded the resume, which included contact info I've redacted for this video, explained I was currently crowdfunding my way to Frosty, thanked each company for their time, and signed off. This cold contact is how I landed my sponsorship with Hitbox. Simultaneously, I did the exact same thing with FGC esports orgs, just sending emails with my resume and hoping for the best. This cold contact strategy also put me in touch with Paragon, by whom I'm now sponsored. And now a quick break to thank this video's sponsor, Zenny Gaming. Zenny has been a leading online glasses company since 2003, when Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was released. With over 50 million pairs sold, Zenny offers prescription sunglasses, sports glasses, blue light glasses for gaming, safety glasses, and just regular old glasses, so you can look like Marissa Outfit 2, Aki Outfit 3, whatever you want. And unlike costumes in Street Fighter 6, Zenny is always releasing new fits, all for a fraction of what glasses would cost at an offline store. You can even virtually try them on with your device's camera before you buy. Use promo code GLADIUS to get 10% off your Zenny purchase while supporting the channel. Link is in the description. With such low-cost eyewear, you can find something to match every cosplay or esports jersey. The possibilities are as endless as Ken Main's downplay. Thanks for watching the ad. Now back to the video. Part 3. What do you need on an FGC resume? If you're planning on cold contacting potential sponsors yourself, you should build a resume of your own. So what should that include? First, start with a short-form bio. If you have a unique story of how you became interested in fighting games, this is the place to include that. If you're from an underrepresented group, in my case, I primarily focused on providing queer, neurodivergent, and female representation with my presence in the scene, this might be a good place to mention that as well, if you're comfortable with that. Next, break down your experience thus far. How many tournaments, online or offline, have you competed in? What were your placements? I'm not a top 8 at EVO player yet by any means, but I did get out of my day 1 pools on winner's side. Don't sell yourself short, include those accomplishments. Have you been featured on any event streams like Tampa Never Sleeps or Casa Bunch? Have you collaborated with any known faces in the scene? If you do content creation, content is also huge in the scene right now. How many followers do you have? Have you done commentary in addition to competing? What is your niche in the content space? Mine largely being resources for newer players. Don't forget to include your contact info before you send that sucker out to potential sponsors. Part 4. Which org should you contact? This is where I'm going to get into the uncomfortable, nitty-gritty realities of sponsorship that most of the FGC isn't going to volunteer. When I first started scouting for sponsorships, I reached out to other women in the scene who had been at this years longer than I have. They all advised me to avoid what they humorously and accurately called t-shirt orgs. A t-shirt org is a sponsor that probably has lots of players, but in reality they don't have much in the way of funds, so they can't provide much of anything to those players. Just a few letters in front of their gamertag, occasional shoutouts on social media, and you guessed it, a t-shirt. At first glance, it can be challenging to differentiate between supportive orgs and t-shirt orgs. If you personally know someone who's sponsored, you can privately ask them what that sponsor is providing for them. These things are basically never public. You have to network and have respectful conversations with your peers about what different sponsors are or aren't providing to their players. I knew that Paragon was a trustworthy, supportive org because I'd already spoken to a friend who worked with them, and they only had the best things to say. During your search, you should have a clear idea of what you personally want in a sponsor. If all you want is the clout, a t-shirt org might be just fine. But if you have a more specific goal, in my case, financial support to attend more offline events, then you shouldn't waste your time contacting orgs that don't provide that. Now, you also need to be realistic when deciding who to contact with your resume. As I said earlier, I'm not a top 8 at EVO player right now. Extremely selective orgs who only currently sponsor upper circuit, highly successful, consistently world-class tournament players aren't going to be interested in someone with a lower current skill level. So the goal is to filter out both t-shirt orgs, who wouldn't provide you with anything, and top-level orgs, who aren't going to give you the time of day. Part 5. What should a good sponsor provide? In general, based on conversations I've had throughout the scene and my personal experience thus far, I think a good sponsor should be covering your entry fees to significant offline events such as Frosty Faustings. Anything beyond entry fee coverage is less likely. Every org's resources are limited, they have multiple players to look out for, and you probably aren't their strongest player by a wide enough margin to justify spending most of their budget on fully covering your expenses. I believe transparency is the only way forward for making sponsorship more accessible, so to be fully transparent, SGF covered all of my expenses inherent in attending EVO. Flight, hotel, food, entry fees, transportation, a new controller to showcase, all of it. I also received a custom player jersey. This experience is extremely uncommon. It was only possible because I was the only player dedicated to SGF devices, period. They didn't have to look out for anyone else. As a small company, they committed to a big swing to get their name out there, and I will be grateful for that until the end of time. Matt is good people. If I demanded that future sponsors fully cover my expenses for events like EVO, I would never have found another sponsor. Put simply, that's an unrealistic expectation in the current landscape. FGC is a small esports niche with limited funding and a lot of players that want support. The partnership with SGF ended after EVO, precisely due to that limited funding, with the door left open for potential future collaborations. Currently, Hitbox is sponsoring me to Frosty. So what does that entail? For starters, just like I mentioned earlier, Hitbox completely covered my entry fee to the event. As a controller company, they provided me a new controller just like SGF had. Hitbox also provided me with a second Hitbox controller and a pro coaching session as giveaway incentives to fuel the crowd fund. Without those incentives, I would never have been able to raise the $1,300 to attend Frosty. I'll probably be receiving some additional Hitbox merch when I arrive in Chicago. The Hitbox partnership is for the duration of Frosty, just like SGF is for the duration of EVO, but likewise with the door left open for future partnership. Hitbox has more than one player to care about, and their top players are people like Daigo, who actually do warrant completely covering all event expenses. For this reason, the relationship is likely to be touch and go, though consistently positive. I have only the best things to say about working with both SGF devices and Hitbox. And lastly, we come to Paragon. Paragon completely covers entry fees to events like EVO, for all of their players. Financial coverage beyond that is dependent on the event, the number of Paragon players attending, the org's current budget, etc. They may very well be able to cover more than my entry fee at times, but mark this down. A good sponsor will never promise you the world ahead of time. A good sponsor will only promise what they know they can provide and see what they can do beyond that when the time actually comes. Paragon is also providing me with better video editing software, some guidance on how to use it, and access to collaborating with professional editors and thumbnail designers in the org on my future videos, if I give the org enough of a heads up to assign people to the project. Part 6. Conclusion. I've been extremely blessed since plunging headlong into the FGC in summer 2023, but I've had to work my ass off for every opportunity. Relentless practice in SF6 is why I beat Impossible Zangief, promptly causing my gamertag to go viral. Having the guts to audition is how I ended up on Justin Wong's subsequent Next Up. I attend 5 to 6 locals in the average month. I play the game constantly. I learned Leverless. I regularly create social media, video, and stream content. I'm in countless FGC discords, one of which I moderate. I network incessantly, usually without trying because I really will just talk to everyone as an extrovert. I volunteer myself for podcasts and streams. I try impossible things, even if I don't expect them to pan out. If you want a sponsorship, odds are it isn't just going to find you. You need to go after it. In competition, content, and everything else FGC, you need to put your head down and commit to accomplishing your dream. Once you have the foundation, a personal brand, a list of relevant achievements, and a specific goal in mind, it really is just about taking that leap of faith and cold contacting appropriate sponsors. And that brings us to the end of the video. So I'll leave you with this. I'm rooting for you.